And this is one of my most favorite people in the world who has become a mentor to me, a friend to me. And I am so grateful that I've gotten to know Rosalind Santaelena, who is absolutely someone that knows the RevOps inside and out, who is the go-to for all things RevOps, who has taught me immensely about RevOps without knowing anything about RevOps. And so I am so excited to introduce Rosalind Santaelena, who is going to bring the knowledge and wisdom galore to you guys today. So Rosalind, take it away, and excited to hear and listen.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Amelia. And thank you for that great introduction. So we are here to talk about the future of revenue operations beyond 2022. So thank you for joining me, joining us today, and really to talk about my favorite topic, right? Revenue ops. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Rosalind Santaelena. I'm a longtime leader in the go-to-market operations space, now affectionately called revenue operations. Right. I've been a practitioner leading the function and the team at over 10 companies in the last 22 or so years, both at, kind of mid-sized to large public enterprise companies, as well as high growth SaaS startups, primarily in the B2B space. I'm also an advisor for a handful of companies, recently launched my own firm called the RevOps Collective, with really a mission to unleash the power of RevOps, right? Really to elevate, empower, and enable businesses, but also RevOps professionals, right? To unleash that power of RevOps as a strategy. I also host a podcast called The Revenue Engine, which features stories, learnings, and really advice from some amazing founders, CEOs, and then other C-level executives who are really changing the way that we grow and retain revenue. So I debated a little bit about whether or not to use some slides, and it looks like my connection's a little funky here. So I keep kind of popping in and out. I don't know if you guys see that too. But, I debated about whether or not to use some slides, but ultimately decided just against it. It's a short session, and I'm hoping that it will be interactive and we'll be able to dig into some of your questions as well. So as I think about the future of revenue operations and really what's to come, I'm incredibly just excited and optimistic, and a little worried too, but we can get into that shortly. So in order to talk about the future of RevOps, I think it's important that we take a look back, right? Like, why such a rise of RevOps over the last few years? I think many people think that revenue operations is something new. I hear that quite a bit. And I would argue that maybe the term itself is newer to folks, but operations has really existed for as long as, sales, marketing, or really just driving revenue has existed. Somebody has been supporting marketing efforts, right? Someone has been supporting sales efforts and helping customers, right? Supporting the people, processes, the systems, the technology, the data, right? The insights, as well as training for the revenue team and for customers. Think about even in a hardware world where I sort of started my career, kind of pre-SaaS, right? We still had to sell boxes to customers. We had to support that hardware. And then we had to ship more boxes, right? And learn how to do that. So in the past, though, I think operations was more of I think really viewed more as a back office function, right? Supporting some strategy, but then also supporting a lot of the day-to-day operations, whether that is, some of those more administrative type of tasks, getting quotes out, booking orders, capturing POs, updating the forecast, right? And kind of building some of the budget and the planning and such, and those type of things in the back. So why the rise and the urgency, and why just sort of this broad realization that we need a more strategic and up-leveled ops? So a couple of things I think that really lend its way to sort of the rise of RevOps, which will also feed into the future of revenue operations, right? When we look at revenue, selling motions are just so much more complex, Right? I think we'd all agree that being in revenue roles, that the motions are just much, much more complex than they used to be. You know, it's not this door-to-door selling where you're just selling a box or selling something. It's, you know, selling knives, I think, is one of the things that a lot of the salespeople that I know have done in the past. You know, when you look at a recurring business model, that means that revenue is no longer just about sales, right? I always talk about revenue being a team sport because it's about customer value. It's about partnerships. It's about driving that real ROI, or return on investment, and that thought leadership to help your customers be successful and to help them want to continue doing business with you. And with that team sport, there are more people, more teams involved in really that end-to-end funnel, which adds complexities, right? Lots of complexities around handoffs and rules of engagement and roles and responsibilities. And just trying to keep everyone aligned and on the same page is a mammoth task for any organization, whether you're 10 people or you're 10,000 people. Another reason I think for the rise of RevOps is really just new routes to market, you know, along the lines of complexity. Now we have product-led growth, right? We have cloud-based marketplace selling. We have a lot more channels and partners involved, adding complexity. And then we have this whole self-serve motion, right? And this no-touch type of buying experience. So tons of new routes to market that add complexity, but also most in a lot of organizations are doing multiple routes to market. And let's face it, right? Buyers such as us, as consumers, we are much more informed, right? There's data available to us at every, you know, on our phone, on our computer, everywhere we go, there's information. And so that makes us much more demanding, right? We expect that frictionless buying process, and we expect companies to be super easy to do business with, right? We want that Amazon easy, and that's what we expect, which adds complexity to your selling motion and to your go-to-market. Another factor I think that has helped kind of increase this need for revenue operations is just market conditions. I mean, look at this volatility in the market. The last couple of years have been such a whirlwind and just such a roller coaster. And change is constant, right? It's constant, especially in earlier stage startups. If you're in a high growth or a high, you know, high performing industry, change is immense. The other thing is investor pressures, right? So we saw abundant funding. We saw this sort of, there's this unforgiving nature of the stock market, right? And shareholders for public companies. With the abundant funding, there's high growth expectations and just a lot of pressure, right? And there's not just on high growth, but also retention, because in a recurring model, retention is key, right? And this makes it critical, really critical to have those deep insights into your business. And then when we talk about data, right? Having the data at the right time. I mean, there is so much data available, right? It's everywhere. It's on your website. It's through social media. You can buy data. But how to get to the right data and get the right data to the right people at the right time, that is so important at the kind of the North Star of what we all want to do. But more importantly, you know, understanding the data and what are the decisions and then the subsequent actions that we need to take place, that we need to do, right, based upon those insights. That has been a huge part of revenue operations, and also technology, right? The technology has just exploded. It is so overwhelming, right? In the past, we might have had an ERP, you know, like, and then we'd have a few other systems around to support that integrated with our ERP. Now it's, you know, very common and very easy to have, you know, 25, 30 even tools in your go-to-market tech stack. You think about all the different apps and all the different things we have to log in to just to get our day jobs done. And I think, like always, you know, but more fierce, I think, than maybe ever before, especially in the B2B space in tech, is competition, right? Every day, it seems like there's a new player coming into the market, or there's existing players that are expanding their offerings and starting to, you know, play in the same areas or same arenas as some of these other companies. So those are just some of the reasons that I see as sort of this, that have really fed into the fuel of revenue operations. So, you know, with all of that said, right, the ability to have the right insights, deeply understand your business, understand what's working and what's not, is incredibly important. It's really critical, right, to running your business. And I think the only way to do this really effectively and efficiently is to have a function like revenue operations, right? A function that is overseeing the end-to-end funnel and that entire customer journey. And then taking that step back and taking that strategic, really holistic approach to aligning and optimizing, like not just the people in the process, but all that technology, and all of the data and all of the insights. So I think all of these factors really gave rise to the strategic nature of RevOps. And if we look back at 2020, right, I share this story quite a bit, but you think about in January, February, everyone had their kickoff meetings and it was all the rah and celebrations and everybody had high, lofty growth goals. And it was, new playbooks and, new pricing models and all of this stuff. And then late February, March, pandemic hits, right? Everything changed immediately. It just changed. Companies, that had that strong operational infrastructure, those were the ones who could assess the current factors, right? Do kind of A/B test things, look at different what if scenarios, and then decide how to pivot, right? They might have had to revise the go-to-market strategy, the goals, the objectives, maybe even move across your ICP, maybe change your target personas and some of that messaging. But you had to deep dive into your pipeline, right? And your growth and your retention expectations. And you might have needed to adjust targets or quotas or even comp structures, right? Which means changing accounts and territories and books of business. So once that all gets done, ops is also the one to then swivel chair and then execute upon all of those revised plans, like literally put new motions into operation. Right? That's enabling the team on the new messaging. It's redoing those books of business. It might be reassigning quotas. It could be issuing new comp plans, right? And updating process and policy around that. And really then having to also reconfigure the systems, right? To support any new processes or policies and make those updates. And then just set up the organization to have the right insights to monitor and then track performance for further iteration, right? Because we didn't know what we didn't know, right? No one could predict what the market had in store for us. So I think companies who didn't have a strong ops infrastructure, those are the companies that really struggled, right? It may have taken them months, right? To just get the right insights to start making decisions. And then months after that to actually put those plans into motion. And in the meantime, your competitors, right, were already holding their customers tight, and they're probably going after your customers at the most vulnerable time. So we saw the rise of revenue operations and a handful of companies, and then we saw people, right? Everybody was talking about it and started promoting it. And so with the downturn of the pandemic, all of the massive layoffs, all of the unfortunate things that happened during that time, I think it then gave way to this another crazy turn, right, of events with 2021. As we entered 2021, all of a sudden the landscape seemed to have just changed overnight almost. Maybe not from a personal perspective, right? Our lives seemed pretty much the same, but businesses were hiring again. And in 2021, it's like they couldn't find talent fast enough, right? It seemed like the pendulum swung all the way into the other direction, at least from a SaaS business perspective. Money was being handed out like candy at Halloween. Everyone seemed to be raising around. We keep hearing about announcements of organizations becoming a unicorn. People were hiring massively, and then growth was top of mind and here again. So from a RevOps perspective, everyone was talking about RevOps. Right? I think it was all the buzz. Everyone knew that they should be talking about it, even if they didn't really understand it, right? Or what it was, or how to start it, or how to implement it. But everyone knew that they should be talking about it, right? We saw this term pop up everywhere. And, regardless of where you sat, you knew RevOps was like all the rage, right? And it was kind of like like digital transformation was, years ago, or big data, right? Or even everybody was talking about machine learning and AI. So RevOps became this sort of buzzword, right? People were talking about it. They were promoting it. People were debating about it. Lots of folks were claiming to understand it, or lots of folks were actually raising their hands saying, I don't understand it. So there were lots of questions, but then answers started to bubble up, right? For those of us who have been in the trenches of ops for years, we shared our knowledge, right? People promoted it. Everybody tried to help each other and really evangelize revenue operations. So instead of being the savior for layoffs and budget cuts, now businesses needed RevOps to support growth, right? Support the ability to hit those super high growth targets that were set because of those high investments and start to meet and exceed board expectations. Budgets started getting loosened where we could buy new technology, which means RevOps involved. We started to do more in-person events, hire more people, expand into new markets or maybe new geographies. But companies needed the data and the insights to tell them where to invest. So again, in comes RevOps, right? And I think, it seemed like just as quick as 2020 shifted into 2021, 2021 shifted into 2022. And instead of clarity, I think we entered another period of uncertainty. I just feel like, I don't know about everybody else, but I feel like I've been on this roller coaster of ups and downs and not really knowing what to believe and what not to. We were still seeing layoffs, right? Layoffs were happening, but organizations were hiring. At the start of the year, there was this war on talent, right, for good RevOps professionals, and demand was really high. But it's been super confusing for a lot of us kind of watching, right? Because with all of the open roles with this RevOps reference, many folks in RevOps roles were still being impacted by layoffs. So why is that, right? I think it's a little crazy and maybe we're just a little, it's a little baffling to me. But I think at a time when, when companies really need to dive deep into what's working and what's not, and then try to do more with less, by driving those better efficiencies and optimization. Like I ask myself, it's like, why would some be cutting back on operations at this point? I would think people would want to invest more. And so, my 2 cents on sort of why companies may have started doing this is just, these are maybe companies that haven't been able to hire properly, right? Or maybe resource properly for ops, resulting in ops being in this constant reactive mode, right? Being more administrative ops support versus that real value-driven thought leadership and business partnership, right? Guiding and leading the business. Another reason might be, just not having the right RevOps strategy, right? Not having the right plans or the expertise in-house to really implement and lead this fully functioning model. I think also, not realizing what RevOps really is, right? I think there's still some confusion there. And then they just hire, bits and pieces of what I would consider part of RevOps for sort of those point in time fixes or just a quick solution to a problem being reactive versus a longer term vision and having that longer term framework. And I think along the same lines, being reactive, right, versus proactive, and having that knee-jerk reaction and cutting back, right, on those non-quota carrying roles, where oftentimes, organizations will look at ops as overhead, right? It's that knee-jerk reaction to cutting back on, what they see as administration, right? Which really it isn't, right? And I think that, part of this is education of the executive team, but it's also about up-leveling the RevOps community of professionals, right? To really help them be successful in their roles. Many have come from different areas of the business, but I think there's still, less folks who have had that time to be able to really develop that true deep expertise in really every part of the end-to-end revenue process, right? In the customer journey that we talk about a lot. I think it takes years to build up expertise in just one part of the funnel, right? Say sales and the sales part of it and around sales ops. Then many either end up getting thrown into having to support the upstream and the downstream parts of the funnel without any guidance or training, or they just don't even have an opportunity to touch those parts of the business and be exposed to learning about it. I think also, in earlier stage companies, I've seen people take a Salesforce admin, right? And all of a sudden that person gets a title change and guess what? Now they're RevOps, right? Or I'm a campaign ops person, running marketing automation. And all of a sudden I'm thrown into a RevOps role and expected to just somehow know, right, without, any training, how to run a deals desk, right? How to manage a forecast, how to design compensation plans, right? How do I build out a go-to-market strategy and do capacity planning and all of these other things, right? So I'm being asked to do these things all while I'm already bandwidth constrained, right? Due to just not having the right resources or maybe being a team of one, so I don't have the right resources or the right training, and I don't have time because I'm working, fighting fires. And on top of all that, there's no one in the organization that can even train me or tell me what to do, because a lot of times you are the only ops person, or you're a small ops team, or you're the ops leader, right? And you're being thrown into these roles. So I think a lot of those reasons are why, we see companies not fully realizing the value of revenue operations as really that strategic differentiator. And on the side of the professional, not allowing RevOps professionals to really, hit their, understand their growth and their potential, right? And start to really grow in their role, because they're limited and constrained in this type of sort of a box of what they can and cannot do. So all this sort of leads me to the future of revenue operations, right? Kind of beyond 2022, having looked back at a couple of years and just seeing the ups and downs, the rise and a little bit of a fall this year, but continuing to rise. I think we'll continue to see this. And as more people start to up level, we'll see that more. So some of my predictions. So one, I think more organizations, like I said, will understand the value of revenue operations. Again, especially as RevOps professionals continue to up level and then really be those strategic thought partners and start to really add value at the executive level and at the C level. I think we'll continue to see communities like RevGenius, right, really do well to support the folks in the function. Because one thing about RevOps people, I think we're very collaborative, right? We're very collaborative by nature. I think you'll be really hard pressed to find a group of individuals as willing as operations people to help each other. The tech stack, right? I think the tech stack will continue to be just this monster to manage. But I think that we will see more purpose-built platforms, right, versus these kind of point solutions. So we'll start to see more consolidation in the industry, which will not only help organizations save money by not paying for, multiple systems and multiple licenses, but also I think it will start to save time and resources from a RevOps perspective, because we're managing fewer systems and more platform built, spending less time on administrating multiple systems and trying to get everything tied back together. I think we'll start to see a lot more of that. And then my other prediction just around data, right? And I think it's, it's not just about collecting the data, but I think we'll continue to see, actionable data, right? Getting to that actionable data that really provides those deep insights. I think that will continue to be the North Star, right? And I think RevOps, we are like the best positioned folks to play a significant role there, right? Being that holistic body, sort of stepping outside and really looking at the end-to-end funnel, right? Seeing all the different parts of what's happening in revenue, and being able to start to be those storytellers, right? Really start to analyze the data, help tell the story of where we've been, but more importantly, help tell the story of where we need to go, right? Somebody used the analogy, I think yesterday on one of the panels around hockey, right? And skating to the puck. Or maybe that was a different conversation. But anyways, they talked more about how RevOps really helps the team know, where to go and where to sort of skate towards the puck. I think it was a hockey analogy. I think the other prediction I have is just, this is probably pretty obvious, but I think selling motions and buyer expectations will only continue to get more complex, which means that having a separate entity, again, overseeing that entire journey, and with that step back from a holistic perspective will continue to be really critical, right? Because marketers, sales team, customer success, account management, all of these different teams, even finance and product, everybody is really good at what they what they know and they're expected to know and expected to do in their area of expertise, but having somebody from an operations perspective looking at, having oversight across that is incredibly important. The other prediction I have is I think that RevOps we'll get better at tooting our own horn, right? I think we need to do that. And I think it's not only about highlighting, hey, we bring value, we do these things and all of that, but really promoting it, right? Really promoting the ROI, right? The return on investment internally, and really sharing a lot of how we're moving the needle and how we're impacting the business and how we, at the end of the day, the things that we do are driving more revenue faster, right? Which is what we all want. And I think, doing that and promoting it actively will help us get the resources that we need to be successful. The other prediction I have is just more, I think we'll see more and more fractional RevOps, right? RevOps consulting firms, I think, continue to come. We see so many coming into the market. A lot of them are providing that tactical kind of hands-on keyboard resource to really augment your in-house staff. So I think we'll continue to see that. But as folks like me go out on their own and provide some of this expertise, I think we'll start to see more firms that really help to provide that strategic advisory lens, right? And sort of help provide some of that framework to help create a plan for in-house teams to go and execute against. I also think that there will be much more training and coaching opportunities for RevOps. And total shameless plug, but this is a passion area for me. I'm actually launching some executive coaching for RevOps professionals, and we'll have some space for really that one-on-one coaching, right? Because we talk a lot about up-leveling and not having enough resources in-house to learn from. So I think by providing some of that one-on-one coaching and training, in addition to some of these one-to-many training courses, I think doing this in the name of really continuing to elevate, empower, and enable the function, I think is going to be really important. And I think the role and the function would just continue to elevate, right, within the organization. I mean, because of all the reasons that I've shared here and just because of all the value that we bring, I think we'll continue to see more respect and more value, I think, given to this area of the business. And hopefully we will see many more executive level roles. We've seen a lot of VP roles in organizations. In the past, it's been a director level, right, reporting in. But now we've seen a lot more VP levels. I've seen senior VPs. And of course, as you know, I'm a huge champion of having us at the C-level table. So I think there's just such great momentum and traction right now for revenue operations. And I'm just really excited to see how we deliver on this promise and just continue to help optimize and power the revenue engine. So thank you for joining me. I think we have like 2 minutes. I don't know if we have time for any questions or if there are any questions. I'm happy to answer anything. It doesn't look like we have any questions, but thank you so much for joining, and always available. Ping me on LinkedIn, connect with me, and please follow the RevOps Collective on LinkedIn. Thank you, everybody.